I'm sorry, you're probably gonna hear my cat in the background playing. He's got some energy right now. Come here. Come here. Come here. The holidays are coming up, and I know this is a hard time for a lot of people. You know, it was hard for me for a while. There's tons of temptations. There's lots of depression. I just wanted to go over a few things that I've learned over the years that I wish I would have known sooner. Now, I don't have any degrees or anything, and I'm not going to pretend like I have some revelation. I don't. I'm somebody that has some life experience and some opinions. If you disagree with any of these things, I mean, it's fine if you want to leave it down in the comments, like maybe you'll enlighten somebody else, but I just ask that you please be kind. Because my intention here is to just make the world a little bit kinder. The society that we live in is trying to promote that we should always be striving for happiness. We should always be happy. The problem with that is happiness is fleeting. It's not sustainable. And the more you're chasing happiness, you're throwing yourself out of balance because you're putting so much time and energy on one extreme end of the scale that you end up on the other one with depression, with disappointment, with failure. And so you're subject to the things that are happening in your life. If things are going well, you're happy, but at the slightest inconvenience, or you were told no, or something goes wrong, all of a sudden now you're back at the other end of the scale. At least that was my experience. What I've realized is I should be striving for contentment. It took me a while to realize what contentment meant to me. If you were to take away your possessions, your family ties, your status, any descriptor you have about yourself that is outside of yourself, if you took it all away, what would you have left? Would you be kind, determined, honest? You know, things that people generally like about themselves? Or are there things that you don't like about yourself? I think if we take away all of these outside forces, what we're left with is, are we content with ourselves? Because if at our base, if we are content with ourselves, then these outside forces won't alter our moods that much. And of course, I'm not talking about people that have like bipolar disorder. I'm not talking about you. And you know, if you like living at these extreme emotions, like by all means, live your life the way you do. However, I found that whenever I was easily inconvenienced, I would then spiral, and it would take me a long time to recover from that. Now, there are different things that it seems humans try and find their happiness in. I was one that tried to find happiness in other people. So I was always in a relationship, and it ended up hurting me significantly more than if I had just been alone. But that's what I was seeking, was human connection. Shopping, getting that instant gratification, the food. But the thing is, like, we know that these are harmful. You know, people can cause us trauma. Shopping can put us into debt. Food can get us, consuming too much food can make us unhealthy. You know, but the one I struggled with was trying to feel love and validation through other people. Most of that was because I was alone. I never really felt like I belonged to my family, and I ended up losing my entire family whenever I was 15. And then through immaturity and just people not showing up for me the way I wanted them to show up, I cut all my friends out of my life, and eventually I just kind of fell off the face of the earth for about 10 years. And it was, you know, some dark times that I was living through. And the holidays are a triggering time because we're supposed to be spending it with family, exchanging gifts, eating all the food. It's supposed to be a lovely time, and a lot of us don't have that. But it's in this isolation that I found my contentment with myself. And I definitely don't recommend that. I'm not suggesting anybody does that. Just there's so much peace and happiness within myself that I don't seek it from other people anymore. I still consider myself very alone, but happily alone. But it's kind of funny because on this journey, I'm trying to connect with other people and bring us all back to nature and our ancestors and, values and things. And so that's very opposite of like the life that I love and live right now. But I think it's important, and I want us all to thrive. So eventually I reached this stage of contentment, and then I kind of got to the point where it's like, well, if I'm just happy, content, being alone where I am right now, then couldn't I easily fall into apathy and no longer have goals, no longer have ambitions? You could easily go that route. I don't think there's anything wrong with that route either. But I don't think there's anything wrong with, once you are content with yourself, who you are, still having goals. Just being aware to have a certain amount of detachment. I like detachment up to a certain point, in that, yes, we should not be so attached to our outside changeable things, but also attachment isn't a bad thing. It's just finding that healthy amount. Like with people, having a deep love for people isn't a bad thing. Just realizing that whenever we lose them, that deep despair that hurts just shows how much they were loved. The more you move from this contentment is gonna show on that opposite side. And I think that's a beautiful thing that we have, our emotions. As long as we're content within ourselves, knowing that no matter the circumstances, we're gonna be who we are, then these outside emotions can be so beautiful to experience. Because just because something sad happens, bad happens, you're not going to spiral and then continue and stay in this depression. Instead, you can move back into your contentment. And then whenever happiness, amazing things happen, you can be fully present in that experience instead of just being like, finally, I know there's quite a few people who are like, I need to constantly be doing something because I can't sit alone with my thoughts. Guys, hey now. I mean, that might be a sign that you need to be alone with your thoughts, and because that's how you work through the things that are actually bothering you. You don't go from hating on yourself and constantly putting yourself down to magically loving yourself. It doesn't go that way. That's not the scale. It takes time, it takes energy, and if you're being mean to yourself all the time, it might take 5 years to finally get to a point where you love yourself and will protect yourself fiercely. And that does take a long time. It took about 5 years for me to finally get to this point. And would it have been quicker with therapy? Yeah, maybe it would have. But I love to do research. I love to find the things of hacking your mind. And I did cognitive behavioral therapy on myself, hypnosis on myself. I learned how to ground. That way so my PTSD would no longer affect me. There are different techniques, and tons of resources online that whatever you're struggling with, you can probably find a way to overcome it. And that requires forgiveness, that requires love, trust. You know, just like you would in any other relationship, you have to build that with yourself. In life, there's no real quick fix to anything. I know we like to think that there is, but if for the last 20 years you've been in this depression and hating on yourself and it seems like there's no getting out of it, you're not magically tomorrow going to be better. You're going to have to put in the time to undo all of these traumas, all of these things that you don't like and don't want to think about. And it takes a lot of patience and kindness and forgiveness for yourself to work through those things. And it's hard. It's not easy, but if I put in 5 years of hard work, and I'm never going to stop putting in work because there's things that I'm still struggling with. But for the rest of my life, I'm going to be better. Versus if I had just 5 years ago said, well, this is my life, and then I stayed that way for the rest of my life. I mean, that's an option, but it's not a good one. And I believe in you. I think people are incredibly resilient and determined, and if you put your mind to something, absolutely you can do it. Maybe there's some hiccups, maybe some setbacks, but truly, if you in your heart, in your desire, you want to change, you can. Absolutely. Our lives are incredibly nuanced, and so what works for me might not work for you. And yeah, it's just a journey we're on to find the things that bring us peace. But I hope we all have a better holiday season.